That a while back. That is
around the time oh gosh, that was two summers ago.
Yeah, that was tweeted by Donald J. Trump, your #2 finisher tonight in Iowa, who was winging his way east. At Sanders headquarters tonight is Casey Hunt, standing by with a special guest. Casey.
Ryan, thanks. We're here with Tad Devine, one of the strategists behind what happened tonight with Bernie Sanders and a key thinker behind that America ad that so many of us watched. I'm wondering, it's pretty clear going into this and from the early signs from the Clinton campaign that they thought that this was going to go one way and something changed tonight. What changed?
Well, Bernie's message had enormous impact here in Iowa, and we think it's going to have incredible impact all across the nation. You know, it's a very simple message. The economy's rigged. It sends too much wealth to the top. It's held in place by a corrupt system of campaign finance. That message is so powerful, and he is so authentic in delivering it, we think we can cut through the nation with it.
Tell me a little bit about what you did on the ground here in Iowa to take the Clintons again by surprise.
Well, we built a huge organization. We had over 100 paid staff here. We had 15,000 volunteers. I think that's our big secret weapon, that people volunteer for this campaign. They put in hundreds and thousands of hours of volunteer work, and I think that more than anything made the difference here on the ground.
What happens next going into New Hampshire? Brian just displayed that quote from that Donald Trump tweeted saying that no one remembers who came in second. Did you come in second tonight, or do you think this is something different?
No, listen, you know, there were 1,406 delegate equivalencies. Our projections are when they're done, the difference will be in small single digits. It may be a tie. One side or the other may win. Listen, we effectively fought them to a tie. But I think what's important, and we'll split the delegates as a result of that. But what's important here is, can we achieve the momentum we need coming out of New Hampshire to move into Nevada, South Carolina, all those March 1st states? I think we can.
What do you need to do to win over African-American voters, Hispanic voters, groups that right now are heavily favoring Hillary Clinton?
We need to tell Bernie Sanders' story. You know, Bernie Sanders is the son of a Polish immigrant who came to this country barely speaking English. You know, he's a product of the immigrant experience. I think that will resonate powerfully in the Latino community. In the African-American community, the work of his life began as a college student where he fought in the civil rights struggle, okay? He's got a powerful story, and when we match that up with his agenda of jobs, of education, of health care, of changing this country's direction, you know, I think that's going to be very powerful in those communities particularly.
Why hasn't he been able to tell that story yet so far, though? People have seized on other parts of his record when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, because we haven't gotten there yet, okay? We're going to Nevada next. We're going to South Carolina. We just began advertising campaigns to introduce him. Listen, I think people in those communities are going to see in Bernie Sanders someone who can take on problems that have been festering for decades and for generations. He's prepared to do it.
Is Bernie Sanders going to win New Hampshire?
We certainly going to try to win New Hampshire, and I think we will.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. We really appreciate it. Brian, Rachel, back to you guys.
Casey Hunt with Tad Devine, senior advisor to the Sanders campaign. Thank you. I want to bring into the conversation now Bill de Blasio, the mayor of America's largest city and a strong supporter of Hillary Clinton. Mayor de Blasio, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel.
Did Hillary Clinton win tonight, or didn't she?
Well, look, the votes are still being counted, but this was a great Hillary Clinton campaign in this state. I saw it. I was on the ground, knocking on doors, talking to voters, talking to activists. It was a really fabulous organization, very strong, a great indicator of what this campaign is going to be like going forward. And look, the votes will be counted. We're on to other states, but I feel great about what the Clinton campaign has and a much stronger ground game than we saw 8 years ago, and I think it makes a big difference.
One of the stories that the Sanders campaign has been telling tonight is that when Senator Sanders started, he was not only seen as an asterisk by the national media, he didn't even have name recognition in Iowa. He started over 50 points behind in Iowa. He was able to turn that around and fight this essentially to a draw with your candidate tonight. Secretary Clinton barely able to hold on if she did win this thing tonight. Isn't that a sort of troubling momentum story heading into New Hampshire, where, after all, in New Hampshire, she's the one who's way behind in the polls?
You know, I look at this as a long game. You know, this was a fine performance by Hillary here in Iowa. She spoke powerfully to the issues of income inequality and the progressive changes we need. I think she has put forward a very powerful agenda in terms of how to deal with the lack of fairness in our economy. That's resonating, and her organization is strong. And there's a lot of states ahead, and I think this is the kind of campaign that's just going to get stronger with each successive state. I feel very good about how this positions her. Look, the key thing is that people want, I believe this fundamentally, Democrats for sure, want a progressive who can get things done. When she says that, it has a ring of truth. I heard it on the doors in Iowa. I heard it on the phones talking to people. They saw that point, and I think the voters up ahead are going to see it too.
Mayor de Blasio, this, you know what? One of the things that I know about you is that you are a committed progressive. You are somebody who's in this not just for candidates, not just for names, but for the cause of your life, which is progressive politics and progressive policy. You've made that very clear here in New York City. As somebody who's not just a Clinton supporter, as somebody who's got those values, is the Democratic primary making the Democratic Party more progressive this year? This fight between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and it looks like it's going to be a hard-fought one, is it good for the kind of policies and values that you care about?
It's very good for the Democratic Party. Democratic Party had, for too many years, I think, lost its way. Turned away from the economic populism that was the definition of the party for several generations. And what we've seen in the last year, and we've seen it from the Fight for 15 movement, we've seen it from campaigns, we've seen it from a lot of different places, is a Democratic Party that is becoming more progressive, that's talking about real economic kitchen table issues, that's willing to talk very bluntly about taxing the wealthy more and taking on the powers that be. I think something organic is happening. And you see it in Bernie's platform, you see it in Hillary's platform, you saw it in O'Malley's platform, actually a clear unity in the Democratic Party around progressive economic principles. I think that's what we've needed for a long time. And Hillary's going to take that vision and I think an extraordinary organization and the ability to reach across the spectrum. I think it's going to mean something very good for the future of this party.
Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City, who is stumping for Hillary Clinton tonight in Iowa. I know you put in a lot of shoe leather out there, Mayor. Thanks very much for being with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
And across town in Des Moines, we go to Chris Matthews at our election headquarters there. Chris?
Well, to sum up tonight is very hard, and I agree with Rachel about this. This has gotten closer throughout the night, so we may end up not getting a real result if we get one for a couple of days now. But the irony of the whole thing is that if you look at Hillary Clinton right now, she's looking ahead to New Hampshire, where she was going to lose, and she probably will still lose. But just think if she had lost tonight, if she had suffered a real loss tonight. We were talking about her firewall being down in the South, especially starting in South Carolina, where there's a large African-American vote in the Democratic primary down there. We were talking about her needing a firewall. Well, coming off tonight, she doesn't look like she needs a firewall. It looks like she did very good tonight, very well tonight. She may well win. It looks like she is going to win by a narrow margin. So she doesn't need to face a firewall. She's not going to lose the daily double of this in New Hampshire. She may well lose New Hampshire. We expected that. But then she goes to South Carolina, and I think in Nevada, she should do well. In Nevada, she should do well in South Carolina. So she's still on course to be the favorite. I'm not saying she's won this thing by any means. It's going to be a long fight, and a lot of caucuses, as they tend to do, will go with Bernie Sanders. They just will, and he'll win a number of other primaries. It's going to be a long fight, but I think she's still the favorite. On the Republican side, it's very complicated because it has to do with the psyche of a guy who hasn't been in politics very long. That's Donald Trump. Will he put his head together by tomorrow afternoon when he has to give his first speech, get his head together, had to get his head around this defeat, and move toward a big victory in New Hampshire and another big victory in South Carolina and get back on a winning trail? I think he can do it, but he now faces two very serious opponents. A very strong, tested, and proven hard right guy, Ted Cruz, and a very likable, brilliant young orator who is very easy to vote for. Very easy to vote for. You vote for Marco Rubio, you're getting a little bit of everything, a Whitman sampler of politics. It's not threatening to people. I still think, I may disagree with Rachel on this, I'm not sure. I think Bernie is hard because when you say political revolution, that was a very effective speech tonight. I think it scares a lot of people. It's too much for a lot of people for me to imagine 50-some% of the American people eventually buying into him. It's just too much of a bite ideologically. So I think tonight, Hillary's still in good shape, Trump's still in the fight, but it depends on his heart. It really depends on his heart. Let me go to Chris sitting next to me.
You know, I think a few things tonight. One, we should take a moment to recognize that I think tonight was the first time that a Jewish American got delegates to be president of the United States. Tonight, a historic moment. Also, look,
he doesn't run like that, though. He doesn't.
No, but
he's not religious. He doesn't talk about it.
He's Bernie Sanders. Okay.
All right.
First of all, you know, when you take a step back and you think about what the Sanders campaign was able to execute, I mean, Bernie Sanders has run an incredibly effective campaign at every level, from organizing from fundraising to message to organizing. The big question tonight was, can they turn people out? And they basically did. I mean, it's going to be essentially a tie. It is not the Howard Dean phenomenon, right? There was a real question of, are we looking at a Dean-esque bubble here? We're not looking at that. On the Republican side, I'm astounded by the fact that I was the highest barrier to entry race, right? It's the one that rewards organization the most. That Cruz campaign is incredibly disciplined and incredibly organized. And yeah, they won. But now we're going to a bunch of states where you just walk in and you pull the lever, right? Or you fill out a ballot.
And there's 7 or 8 states the same night.
There's 7 or 8 states the same night. Donald Trump, if, like you said, the psyche of Donald Trump, if he can recover from tonight, he still has a tremendous
Bernie did the kind of campaign he ran here, which is very intensive, very organized, based on a lot of passion. Look at those people tonight in that room. Can he go state by state, or is he island hopping? He can only go from here to New Hampshire to South Carolina. Can he go across the country with that kind of campaign?
I think, well, right now they're bringing in enough money that they can build that kind of capacity. The question is, can they build it out fast enough?
Yeah.
And I think South Carolina is going to be a real test for them. Even if he loses, what's that margin look like? What starts happening among constituencies that factor so prominently in the Democratic Party that are very underrepresented in these first 2 states?
And I think Tad Devine tonight trying to draw a correlation between the experience of someone who's sons of Polish immigrants to the United States from Eastern Central Europe with people from Latin America. It's a hard one. You got to really sell that connection.
Yeah, and I think
that's a tough one.
The case the Sanders campaign makes is, we have to sell the Bernie Sanders story and message to communities and voters that haven't heard it, because he doesn't have the name recognition of Clinton. And it remains to be seen how successful they are doing that.
And he's running against Clinton.
And
Bill Clinton will be very good in the South, I think, retailing across the South for Secretary Clinton. Back to you guys. I think that's as good as we can do, I think, tonight. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, I'll tell you.
It's good when the conversation takes on the air of an Irish tavern late at night. It's good, actually. We're going to put off the revolution, at least the discussion of that, until we do something very commercial. And break for a commercial. We'll be back right after this.